Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing? Oh, how's everyone doing? Are you here? Okay, okay. Just making sure. Just making sure. My name is Ira. This is Aruna. And we're so excited that everybody's here tonight. For us, it's been 3 long days, and we're so excited to share our experiences with you all. Um, this is the Power Talk. Curated and hosted by Hip Hop House, Kip Republic, and Soho House. And Aruna's going to share a little bit about what the Power Talk is.
So thank you all for coming today. I'm very grateful to stand here next to Ira Kip presenting this talk together. It means a lot. I'm also very grateful to see Glenn Helberg sitting in the front seat. So very grateful. I will leave it to Ira to introduce our beautiful guests today, our speakers today. And I will firstly speak a little bit on why we started as Hip Hop House this Power Talk, this idea of speaking on power. Like this whole word power is a little bit awkward sometimes. So we needed to normalize talking about it. That's why we started it. And also because after each power talk, everybody felt so empowered. So this is why we chose to name it like that, and also to do many power talks. And we started it in 2018. This was around the same time when diversity and inclusion politics started to emerge. And with that, also a lot of belly aches, headaches also started to emerge. So we needed to have more language, more understanding of dynamics of power in all sorts of different ways that would affect especially cultural creatives of color in the Netherlands. And this is how we started to experiment in different types of conversations with different types of leaders and artists on this topic. So we had many speakers. Lene Denise was one of our speakers, which was, yeah, excellent. We had the great Emery Douglas come to Rotterdam and meet 100 of us. In collaboration with the Black Archives, we invited M1 of that press to Hip Hop House. So there was so many beautiful memories. And with Kip Republic, we organized one with Adrian Wahid, Jonathan McCrory. So we have a list of speakers that transformed the way we speak about power, the way we think about power, and how we look to ourselves as powerful. So today, we are here at the Soho House for the first time. Thank you so much for having us and bringing our people here and experiencing this great hospitality that we have had today. And I leave it up to Ira to take us into the reason that why today we are here, why these speakers. Maybe I'll share a little bit what was the trajectory before. Ira introduced us to Darlene Nipper 2 years ago, and with us I mean Hip Hop House, and she said, you guys really need to have a training on leadership for Hip Hop House. And I always listen to Ira. So we did, and we had a great experience. And at that moment, I shared with her what we learned and how it changed our thinking. And she said, yeah, next year I'm going to bring Darlene back, and we're going to do it with all these organizations from the Netherlands. And I was thinking, well, if anybody could do it, you could do it. But I still didn't think it was actually going to happen. And it did. So she already envisioned how important it was for us as a community to have these learnings. And this is what we did the past 3 days.
Yes. And just quickly, we had different pods where everybody in the group was assigned to something, and I was So you had the time part, so that group had to make sure time was taken into consideration. And you had like the what does the space look like part, and I was in that once because I'm sensitive to space. So if we can turn off the beamer, that would be really nice because the blue light is like aesthetically not the greatest light for people of color. So that's what I learned in the theater. So, but anyway, back to the art of leadership. I have a few. I wrote a few things down, but obviously, I'm also speaking from the heart. Um, I met Darlene 20 years ago. Um, and I told this story the first day of our training, so apologies for being repetitive to my fellow trainees, but I did this play called She Baltimore, and it was about domestic violence in the LGBTQ community. And I was doing research about domestic violence in Baltimore, and I went to this big conference, and there were a lot of people and a lot of information, and I'm walking up to this stand, and because you have all these different stands with information, and I walk up to one stand, and Darlene is standing there, and I ask her, "Is this your stand?" And she's like, "No, this is my event." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So then we became instant friends. So she came to see the play, and then she said, "What do you need?" And I said, "I need Washington, D.C., because I knew that there was a large black queer community in D.C. So she made it possible for us to perform 3 nights in D.C. And then she also made it possible for us to go to the White House with 100 activists, leaders, and critical thinkers. So, and that was 20 years ago, and she is an amazing leadership expert, but to me, she's my godmother. So I'm so grateful that she made it here to the Netherlands and to us these past 3 days. And then Arun and I were thinking, okay, if we're organizing a power talk, who would be the person to be in conversation with Darlene? And one of the questions Darlene asked us during the training was, are you aware of the power that's in the room? And I think that if there's anybody that understands the power in a room when it comes specifically when it's about people of color, it's Arthur Kibbelar. So Arthur, a dear friend of ours as well, he's works for international affairs. He's a diplomat, but also a really great friend, mentor, and big brother to us. So we'll go into conversation with Darlene and Arthur in a few minutes. But right before we do that, I wanted to invite, first I want to just say, these are the I just want you guys to stand up real quick. We were able to get a Need for Legacy. Please stand up. House of Knowledge, Black Archives, Kip Republic, Canvas Black, OSCOM, Hip Hop House, like to get all these people and all these schedules together and all of us in one room was pretty special, and done by Joan as well. So thank you for that. And Leroy is just going to quickly tell us a little bit about what we did these last 3 days.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for being here. And thanks to my fellow trainees again. Thank you, Darlene. I think that these past 3 days have been very profound for me. And I think I speak on behalf of the rest of the group as well. Being in a space, learning, speaking about what is leadership and what it means to us. I've had leadership trainings before. I have management trainings before. None of it was like the past 3 days. So thank you for that, Darlene. There were a couple of things that really stood out for me. And one of the major things was it was a cycle, a cycle of how we lead, of how we act, of how we operate, and how we learn. And that cycle is split up into two pieces. And on the one hand side, you have, correct me if I'm wrong, plan and act. And then comes reflect and discover. We people of color, black people, our organizations, a lot of the time we are on the side of plan, act, plan, act, without us having the mental capacity, the time to reflect and discover. Seeing this for me was like, oh, this is something profound that we need to know and we need to take into account. One of the other things was I believe this was one of the first things that we dove into, that was about power and what is power and what is your relationship to power. Power dynamics in any situation, whether that be a personal situation or work related. There's always power in play. And we had a discussion with each other on, okay, what does power mean to you? But also, and this was a question that I think it hit me like a left hook, but also I think other people in the group. The question was, look around you and think about the power in this room. What is the power in this room and what does it mean? Kimberly, can you please come up? Because I think when we discuss this question, your answer
Thank you.
was I believe spot on. So if we discuss power and if we discuss the power in this room, how would you phrase that?
So, for me, I was completely struck by the question, and I just didn't know what to do with it. I couldn't relate myself. What is the power in this room? I see everyone. I know everyone. I know what they are doing. I know what they are capable of. But I just cannot label myself as a powerful person. And it made me feel very, very uncomfortable. And then I started to think and reflect upon myself. And yeah, just getting to know that. So for myself, but I also think a lot of us here, we are not learned, we are not programmed, and we are not taught to see ourselves as powerful. So people have said many things of me, like you're strong, you're resilient, you can do a lot, you can achieve a lot, but never the word powerful. 3 days ago, I wasn't able to label myself as powerful. But today, at the end, in the closing, we were standing in the circle, and I told the group that I've been here before in this building, but when it was a university. And that's a predominant white space, which can be violent from time to time. I will not take you into the examples. But when entering this building and being with the group, I didn't feel what I felt back then. I couldn't remember exactly what happened. And it was because of the power in the room. It was transformed.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I think also for each and every one of you here today, while we are going into the power talk, look around you and try to think for yourself. If I look at the people in this room, you might not know everyone, but what is the power in this room, and how can we unite that power? The next day, the second day, we dove into purpose. We had a conversation on what purpose was and what purpose means to each and every one of us. And also a very interesting exercise because we can obviously we all work at organizations, have our own organizations, and it's the thing. Like when you start your organization, you're gonna define your purpose, your vision, your mission, da 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 da. And a lot of times you don't actually think about your personal purpose. And on the second day of the training, we were basically forced to start thinking about our personal purpose and how we show up through that. And one exercise that we had to do, I think this was the most interesting and the most profound one, because it became very personal. And with personal, I mean it became emotional as well, meaning that we could allow ourselves to be vulnerable because of how you showed up and how you allowed us to be, how you created that safe space. And I think the whole group, each and every one of us, had to dive deep within, and it already started with the conversation. We were broken up in duos, so you sat down with your partner and started discussing, started going back and forth, and the conversation, most of the conversations were at first not even about purpose, but more on a personal level, how you feel and the things you do and how you show up in certain spaces and places. And at the end, we all got 2 minutes, and we had to perform pitch our purpose to Darlene and the rest of the group in 2 minutes' time. And I think that for each and every one of us, it was a very personal experience to speak out your purpose, and a very meaningful experience. One of those purpose stands, I think we should repeat today. Ida, please come up.
Hi. So I want to say thank you, Leroy. It was a vision stance, actually. It's okay. And so we were asked to present our vision, right? So I'm going to tell you what it was. 2 minutes. You got 2 minutes. The assignment was 2 minutes to present your vision. I'm going to do it the way I did it yesterday, which was like this. I am Ira Kip. And I am going to revolutionize the practice of fundraising. How? Within the next 3 to 5 years, my vision is to start my own fund. How I'm going to do that? First of all, this fund is going to consist of money that comes from private funders. The government will not be involved. Second, it's going to be low threshold. That means the fund is for anybody. Anybody can apply. What this fund will do, it will simply celebrate great ideas. And third, the fund is going to have a body, a group of people who are the judging panel that's going to consist of engineers, architects, artists, thinkers, creatives, scientists, who all reflect Black and brown communities. But the very best part, if you are going to apply for funding, you get to choose who's going to be on your judging panel. I'm going to add something that I didn't say yesterday. So if you want your panel to be all women, that's your choice. If you want it to be heavily represented by the LGBTQ community, that's your choice. If you want only engineers, that's your choice. The point is, it's for everybody, it's low threshold, and it simply celebrates Black great ideas.
Big budgets. So you all know, within the next 2 years, we will be applying for funds. Before we get our panel on stage, I'd like to say, Darlene, thank you again. And I think that for everyone outside of the group that came here tonight, be aware of Rockwood. I'm not being paid for this, by the way, but be aware of the work that Charlene does, the art of leadership, especially in a context where we operate in, mostly people of color, and what leadership means and how you can basically make steps. And thank you. I'd like to welcome Arthur and Darlene.
Thank you, Leroy. Good evening. It's a real honor and pleasure for me to welcome and to be in conversation with Darlene. Just shortly, we've met, I think, about a few weeks ago online.
Yes.
And we hit it off immediately. And I said, Darlene, we need you in the Netherlands. And before I give Darlene the stage, Darlene, I wanted to just point out that thank you, Kip Republic, but also, of course, Hip Hop House and all the others, the team, for organizing this amazing event. I'm extremely honored to be in conversation with Darlene, having seen the trajectory of Darlene, and I invite you all to see her CV, not only as a social justice advocate, but in building the black community in the US and around the world, I must add, but also because I've seen you now as a very, I would say, amazing woman that can translate the pains, the issues we have immediately in something positive. And I was invited to be part of the last part today, and I saw the amazing energy in the room. So Darlene, welcome again.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
And my first question to you is, how do you read the power in this room?
You know, first of all, thank you, Arthur. I'm so happy to be in conversation with you, and thank you to Leroy and the others who came up here. I almost feel like I don't need to say anything. I'm like you all said so much about what's important to me. There's so much power in this room that the energy reverberates through my bones. Like I feel the energy in this room. And many of you I don't even know, but I know your power. I believe in your power. I believe in possibility. And I know that it exists not only in this room, but amongst all of our community members.
Thank you, Darlene. Now, just for me, I structured the talk a little bit. Please allow me to have a conversation first with Darlene, to pose some questions and items that we have discussed, so Darlene can also share with you where she comes from, how she sees it. And then I would invite, of course, you to come into the conversation after the dialogue and you to pose some questions. I'll ask you to keep it short, which is not my strength, but I would definitely like as many people to get the opportunity also to have some questions. And then I would invite as a third last part a reflection of Darlene of what she wants to give us, being in Amsterdam, being in the Netherlands, but also working here this week. What are the key messages? What are our challenges? And what should we aim for? Where should we be in the future? So this is what we have discussed. Again, this is for me as well, Darlene, for us to show us and lead us, and I think in a difficult political context. Yes. And I'll be very frank with you, and I'll be open, and I take that from so this is not Hip Hop House or Kip Republic, but my personal take is that we are not in easy times in the Netherlands. As a community, as leaders. So you have worked in many, I would say, contexts in which you have to deal and you have to analyze but dissect the power dynamics. What are the priorities? We talked about, Leroy pointed out, I call it your wheel of leadership, that we are going into plan and action too fast. And you actually, I want you to maybe give the audience a little bit of your vision of how leadership, and black leaders in particular, should be taking care of themselves.
Yeah, this is so important. Thank you for that question. And you know, I know that there are multiple different people in the room with very different experiences, but one of the things that I think is so common for us, and we talked about that a lot this week, is that we're working very, 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 very hard. That people are up against not only our own internal pressures when it comes to leading and doing justice work in our communities, but the pressures of the systems that impose things on us. And it's a particular thing to both be at the end of oppression and also at the butt, if you will, of oppression, but also have internalized many practices that actually don't help us, that actually are harmful.
Can you give us an example?
So, for example, many people will plan and act, but mostly just act. One campaign after the other, one big gig after the other, one big show after the other, and another, and another, and another, and another, without any time to pause. It doesn't matter. I just saw a note from my team saying that I have a little blog out right now that talks about this. Our hearts and our bodies might be longing for a moment of rest, but our minds will tell us that we can't rest at all because we have to get this done. And that is both an internal and an external pressure. Some of it is adopting habits of white supremacy, because I don't know about you all, but I'll speak for myself. I like to talk about habits of white supremacy when I'm not talking about me,
So can you dissect, because you're going to cover a lot, and I know time is short.
Yeah.
But just before you go into white supremacy, what is it that brought you here to do this as a professional?
Let me say, what brought me here is that I care about us. I care about us. And there were people here who could reflect to me the need that is present here.
Okay.
I come where I'm called. I don't like to impose myself anywhere. I check. Do people really want to do this? And if they really want to do it, then yes, let's do it. Because it is a vulnerable thing. But we are up against something that we have internalized, not to talk about white supremacy, but to say that we have internalized pressures and we have our own pressures inside of us because, in fact, we are in a situation where we need to act, and we need to act now. We need things to change yesterday. So I just wanted to impress upon you that it's not, sometimes you feel like you're doing something wrong. So it's not about us doing anything wrong, but there is a way for us to get out of the habits that we have in order that we can be healthier, more whole, more balanced, as we talked about today for the folks who were in the space with us earlier, so that we can reach the goals that we need to reach.
Excellent. But so you, in our introduction talk, you said this has been years in the making, right?
Absolutely. We almost 25 years now.
Okay, so just for the audience to know,
Yep.
this is really a practice that you have refined and
Yes.
and you have actually designed.
Yes.
Can you
Yes.
tell us a little bit more about the process and
Yeah.
how this is functioning right now?
Yeah. Well, we do our work at the point of vulnerability. that there's a way in which there's psychology, there's sociology, there's a lot of behavioral interventions that we're working from. Over the years, we work with people, and what we do is we learn from what people share with us in the room, what works and what doesn't, and we take what people say works the best, and we go with that, right? And so the stuff that we did together, these ideas around purpose and vision, we do something around how do we swing back from when we're in crisis or when we get beat down or when we're triggered. We do work on how to be interdependent relationships with each other. How do we do relationship first? Because, let's talk about power for 1 second.
Right.
We have power as individuals, but there's so much power in the collective, in multiple people. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is help each of us identify our source, our clarity about the power that we have, the gifts that we bring, the opportunities that are before us, but not for the sake of us alone being okay, but really for the sake of us creating and building together the power that we need in whatever community we're talking about to get the job done.
Thank you. I, for me, was struck by the word personal ecology.
Yes.
Can you give us a little bit of that? Because before we go to the collective,
Yes.
you stress the personal constantly.
Yes.
Why, specifically for Black leaders or people of color, do you think that's a priority?
Because personal is so important for us because I don't want to generalize too much, but what I have noticed, and we've worked with over 10,000 people, so I read a lot of data about what people like and what they don't like, what they're struggling with. And what we see so consistently is that people of color in particular are straddling a line between caring about everyone else and not necessarily being able to care for ourselves or even feeling like it's not okay. Who has felt like it is not even okay to actually, you don't have to raise your hands, but all right, that's what I'm talking about, Jennifer. It's like, what are you talking about? It's just not okay. It's not okay. And so we're straddling this place where we know we need to take care of ourselves and get support from others to help us to do so, but it's difficult for us to stop and take the moment and the time that we need. Last thing I'll say about personal ecology. We can think about the ecology of the environment, but how often do we think about our ecology? We don't talk about balance, we talk about ecology because it's a whole system that supports your well-being. It's not just one thing. Rest could be watching basketball for you. Rest could be reading. Rest could be taking a walk. But you have to understand the elements that are important for you in order for you to feel whole and well taken care of, so that you can have the energy. Why are we doing it? So that you can have the energy to show up for this powerful, incredible visions that you all have for the world.
It's going to be hard for you to get everything that Darlene is working on, but I hope you can contextualize it for us. You come from the US, and we look at the US for inspiration, but we also know their big issues.
I'll just chuckle a little bit because the issues are big.
Okay.
They're not small there.
Yeah, but our issues are big as well.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And we like to think that maybe, this is my opinion, the conversation is more developed in the US simply because the numbers are bigger.
I think there's probably a lot of conversation happening.
Okay.
That might be the biggest difference.
Okay.
That we are in the conversation actively among many, many, many of us.
Okay. Just simply because I would like to see, how do you see the context right now? You've been doing this work you've been CEO for 9 years.
Yes, and was there before that.
And you were there before,
Yeah.
so you're steeped into the work. You've seen the coming and going, the cycles of the context, the political context.
Yeah. Yeah.
How does it affect the personal ecology? How does the power dynamic
Yeah.
affect us,
Yeah.
to your opinion?
Yeah, I think we are in now. There's a big debate that's going on now. Is this time any different than some of the worst times that have happened before? Right. I have to say, I believe we're in a different time. I believe that there's a huge rise in authoritarianism that's happening across the globe, and we're watching it. I think we see fascists in our country for sure that are at play. I think that there is a bigger demand on people who are newer leaders. You know, oftentimes there are people of color leaders who are taking over organizations that have been institutionally very different from the way that they want to run those organizations. And I think the pressures are very high because there's so much from the past that we're trying to escape. And the pressure is on that leader right now, each of you, to can you lead us to a new place is the question. Even if no one is saying it aloud, it's the one that is sitting with you in that role. That's what I hear from the people that I've spoken with, and that's very true in the U.S. context too.
Can you give me a personal example of how your leadership has changed?
Yeah. My leadership it's really interesting because I went from working in local communities, you know. Can I talk about my mother?
Of course. Please.
My mother was amazing, you know. My mother was very poor. She grew up poor. She was super fancy. You know, she was very much of a diva type person. She had to look good. The hair was always done. Very respectful. And she would be very troubled by my sneakers that I'm wearing today, just to give you, that will give you good context. But she had a single goal. Her goal was, she had been raised in the projects. Does the projects make sense here?
I think people know.
Know what that? Yeah. She had been raised in the projects, and she had birthed her children in the projects, but her single goal was that she was going to somehow, before we got grown, raise us outside of the projects. Yeah?
Right.
My mother was so clear. Her nucleus of vision was so small and clear, but it had a profound impact because that way, hey, it gave life to me and my siblings and our children and the way that we raise people. And so I was taught to be local.
Okay.
My first leadership was very local. It was help the people in your family, help the people in your community. That's what matters. And over time, I did all kinds of work, LGBT work. I did HIV/AIDS work for many years. By the way, I did enormous amount of advocacy around mental health issues in the United States and worked very closely with the Black Psychiatrists of America for many years. So all of that was important. But what I noticed was that the thing in all of those situations that was important was that we all need to be able to be in our power to lead with a sense of collective community and to be able to achieve the visions that we have for the world. So I stopped working on individual issues and began to work with the leaders who are working on those issues to make sure that those leaders would have everything that they need to do the earth-shattering work that we need to do.
Thank
So
you. I have to move a little bit.
that is what I think. And so you see the difference. You know, from working on specific issues, for me it's like, okay, but we need leaders in all of those fields
Excellent.
to have what they need. And now my mission is to make sure that happens.
Okay.
That's why coming here was so important to me.
Okay. And I invite the audience to ask you more about that. I just want to move, because of time,
Sure.
to some of the issues. We've discussed leadership, the relationship with power. I would like you to maybe elaborate a little bit on the black leadership, or what I call, you mentioned white supremacy, but how are we in our blackness, or as people of color, aware of racism? Are we aware of the structures and the systems around how it affects our leadership? And I just had a presentation a week ago of a professor who did in the Netherlands the first time survey of 40 leaders of color and documented their experiences. And I can tell you it was not
What was it?
pretty.
Tell us something about that.
Well, I don't want to take the stage on this, but I think
Please.
it's extremely important. No, it's because it relates to what you're saying. And she, a professor, a Dutch professor, I think she identifies as white, but she did these interviews with 40 leaders of color and really documented their experiences and came out with recommendations. And although we know a lot of the recommendations, it was new for such survey and research to be done in the Netherlands, and as I understand, even internationally, that is breaking ground. So, and she actually dissects the power dynamics within mostly white organizations, so people of color leading
in white
organizations.
Yes,
I have
yes,
to
yes.
add that. But they totally actually had some commonalities of their experiences. And as we are now in an area in which diversity and equity and inclusion, which I don't like as a concept, but which has been very much ingrained now in Dutch society, they were identifying their obstacles, how they have to lead in sometimes unsafe environments, how they have to actually be very empathetic. She actually discovered that all those leaders had extreme skills of empathy because they have to understand the dynamics in order to survive. Anyway, and she went on, but she clearly said that one person cannot make a difference,
Right.
and that racism as a system needs to be tackled by all.
Beautiful.
So I wanted you to give us maybe your aspect of, and if we go with racism, we go of, I think, the LGBT, we talk about a lot of other issues which are systemic in our system.
Well, I think she's on to something, particularly that there is a unique experience for people of color who come into traditionally white-led organizations that what we call it is the savior syndrome. So, you know, the organizations have been around for 50 years. You come in and you're expected to make the big change in a very short period of time. Often the leader that comes in everyone is expecting that. That's the first thing. Also, there is an I will call it an overemphasis, in my opinion, on this dynamic between people of color, particularly in the U.S. context, it's black folks. In South Africa and other places that I've worked in, it's not black folks and white folks. It's there's all kinds of dynamics that are beyond that. But in the U.S. context, it's often black and white, because you know the U.S. context, and so that becomes almost a hyper focus on that dynamic and that problem, which does need to be addressed, but it prevents the people of color from collectively focusing on the power that we have. So what we are noticing is, wow, we can be around each other and not even really take in what we could have, what we possibly could do together. Which is why I love this recommendation and this comment about we cannot address racism alone, but in fact we need to do it together, because our focus is not, we use the individual in order to reach the power of the collective. That if you learn about who you are and what's causing you to show up the way that you do, and do that in the room with other people like you will be able to meet in a collective place that you wouldn't have been able to meet in otherwise. Now, let me explain to you this, and I'll stop. I do get critiqued. I don't want you to think that this is not, there's a lot of critique about my work. And I bet you can imagine why, and I hope you have questions about that thing. Because a lot of people think this is too simple. It is not possible what you're saying. You're overshooting the real problems that we have. But you could hear from the people in that room the passion that they have after being in that room. And I believe in it wholeheartedly. There is something spiritual, psychological, and physical that happens when you meet each other. I'm going to say naked.
Interesting. Thank you, Darlene.
Naked.
I hate
Not physically naked. Somebody help to explain this. Stripped of all of the things, the titles, all the things that we bring with us that prevent us from being vulnerable. So when I say naked, I mean psychologically without barriers, not being blocked from each other, because then we can meet each other.
Let's go under the
directly.
nakedness. I liked it. But I feel like before I open up to the floor, what is the intersectionality of this whole discussion? And I have to jump into it because of time.
Yeah, let's do it.
But just give us a few pointers of how intersectionality comes into your work.
Well, who in this room thinks that they're just one thing? I don't see a single hand.
No, I think this audience is already
Okay,
there.
right?
That this audience can
Okay,
handle that.
nobody thinks that they're just one thing. So the answer to our problems have to be dealt with in an intersectional lens. And what I mean by that, and this is a dynamic that is challenging for communities of color, because we have traditional organizations in our communities too, do we not? Organizations that have been around for a long time that may be, I'll say black, just as an example, but will feel really uncomfortable with a queer leader. Or they may be a black organization and they are struggling because of another cultural identity. So, for example, in the U.S. context, you know, when I say black American, people know I mean black American, but there's also Caribbean Americans in the U.S. There's also folks from the continent in the U.S. There's also people from the South. There's people from the North. There are a lot of contexts. And we actually have our own challenges amongst us in those dynamics too. And I noticed a little bit of this with my friends that I've been with this week. Okay. I noticed quite a bit with lovingly clarity and identification across. Should I name it out loud? The first there was the Rotterdam and Amsterdam, which I know nothing of. But that was only the surface. Oh, then we got to, are you Surinamese? Right. Ooh, are your people from Curaçao, or are you from Suriname, or are you from Aruba, or wherever are you from? But can I know for sure so I know? Are you black? Are you black? Okay. And what is black anyway? Okay. So you
I have to.
You see, this is what we mean.
No, I want you to address it because we talked about this before. Intersectionality has not always been a good conversation within, I think, the black community.
Absolutely not.
Okay. So what tools? What do you give us? How do we, and I don't expect the whole solution. I expect just what is the way forward?
But let me end that question with the same sentence. This is the way forward. We cannot be successful, and part of what's holding us back is the fact that we are identifying so much into these places and not able to be more collective. Power is multiple things, but one thing that we know is powerful is large numbers of people who are aligned in their strategy. Did you hear the word strategy? I like that you keying with me, but I want to know that we are operating from the same strategic vantage point. And this is going to only be successful if we cross the various identities and unite on the clarity of cause and the approach to taking the power that I believe we as people of color truly deserve. It's there, and we deserve it.
this is my bridge to the audience. I know there's many more questions I have here for Darlene to ask, and I really would like you also, maybe later, to come in on the vulnerable side of us, because I believe we need to hear it. We trust you. You have created a safe space. We are here in a safe room. We need to hear and to really address what are our vulnerable spots.
Yeah.
What are we overseeing? Why can we not talk, and why can we not align? I'll be honest with you, I am not very optimistic about the alignment in the Dutch Black communities, because I feel our leaders don't always see eye to eye, and ego versus power versus a lot of other dynamics come in. I don't know if it's trauma, I don't know if it's heritage, I don't know what it is, but I feel we have to fix it because the storm is coming. So I want you to react, but I would like to give the audience also the opportunity to have some questions. Please tell your name and keep it short.
Of course.
Yeah, is there a mic for the audience? Is there an extra mic, or is it do I have to come in? Yeah?
I'll go here.
Thank you for this wonderful conversation.
Can you put this mic?
Yes,
there you go.
My name is Munganyende. My question is, what does trauma-informed power look like? I'm thinking along these lines because I consider the type of power, looking at power that I was brought up in is a soft power.
Yeah.
So I was taught to kind of exude soft power and identify with a power that is soft. I wonder if that is trauma informed, but I also wonder what would be a more intelligent way of looking at power from a trauma informed lens.
Thank you so much for that question. We do some work that we call work around resilience that's really about when we get triggered and we have a traumatic, it comes from the trauma, and it's about when we get triggered and how do we navigate that so that we can be in the fullness of our power. Now, soft power is power. You know, I'm not saying that it's not, but the question is that the power that actually works for you? And I don't know that it is always a trauma, comes from a traumatic place, but I do think that we're operating in a context, and I think about my own parents, you know, and the people that I learned from, my teachers, and many of them say, you know, Darlene, you speak so strong. I'm like, what the hell? What does that mean? You know, or you're very emotional. So for me, that will relate to what you're saying, yeah? And it feels like that is their trauma. There is an intergenerational trauma for people who we carry from one generation to the next. So here's my invitation to you, okay? They may have trauma-informed power that has been shared with you, and you may be holding some of that. But my invitation to you is that you can actually break that chain. You can let that go. And we worked very hard in our session to talk about these kinds of issues, help people to see where the source is of the issue so we can break that cycle and move into ourselves. Can I say one more thing?
Yes.
There are appropriate trauma-informed ways of dealing with things. Yeah? And there are very delicate, I'm speaking in front of a psychiatrist who's much more knowledgeable about trauma, I'm sure, than me. But trauma lives in our bodies. And a lot of times we spend times in our minds. I'm not even going to say our heads, Doc. I'm going to say our minds, okay? Very important distinction. So when you go to get support, and I'm inviting you and everybody else who feels this way and is trying to break free of some trauma, when you go to get support, be sure that the support also includes dealing with the body, finding a way to release it from the physical body, because a lot of times it's there and it comes out before you even know. You can't even react. It's just the trauma response is there before you can even imagine that it moves. You don't have a chance to think about it. You have lizard brain. And that's the old lizard brain. This is something really important that I think intergenerational leadership is important too. We got to tell each other that it's not okay what you're telling me. I don't want to live this way anymore. I want to be in my power. Can you help me? And we got to work individually and collectively to fix it. I hope that helps you, and I'm happy to talk more, but it's a complicated question because there's so many layers that are there. The thing I believe the most is that we can break free. We can break free from it.
Thank you, Darlene. I think all of the topics need a special lecture of Darlene. I don't know if you agree, but I cannot resist the temptation to ask our psychiatrist, of course, in the
Please,
audience,
please,
to
Doc.
even actually a question, a remark, a recommendation, something that
About
you-
trauma.
About exactly, because we're talking about trauma
Yeah.
in relationship to leadership. Glenn?
Thank you. Darlene, I'm here not as a psychiatrist. I'm just here to receive all your love. That's what I'm doing here. I enjoy listening to you. And of course, I'm a psychiatrist. But I'm a black man. And with a lot of these intersections. And listening to you, it means that while you're talking, I'm looking at, am I saying that? Is that okay? She says that. So now at this moment, for me, you're my mirror. That's what I'm doing, because when you're gone, probably I have to do something. So not only me, of course, but with the whole group. But as an elder, I feel a kind of responsibility. So I'm listening very carefully to you on what you're saying, about what you're saying about taking care of ourselves. I'm very carefully listening to you. You know, it's the first time, because I wrote a book about a lizard brain, and I didn't hear a lot of these people in this community telling me that they read the book and they took the lizard book to themselves. And now you're saying this, I say, listen to Darlene, because then perhaps you can read what I'm saying about lizard brain. Whereas then you can understand what I'm saying, that one of the most important things of us is the body. Yes. Because one of the things that happened during colonialism, and I always say Descartes made a big mistake. Descartes say, we think so we are.
Yes.
And I say, that was the biggest mistake in this Western world we've done, because that's part of what has happened to us, because we started thinking. Yes. And we forgot all about what our ancestors told us, that when the body talks, we have to listen. So I'm so happy, I'm grateful that you said that, because those words for me, they sound like the sounds of our forefathers. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
I think I'll take a little bit, but I don't know how far this mic will go. I saw, because of the light, I didn't see very clear, but I see in the back. Are there more questions?
In the
I'll-
back, can you come up to get this?
You might have to come this way, but I'll give it first to Jennifer.
I'm gonna come this way so everyone can see me.
I'll try to be more brief.
No, I'm sorry. I'm really emotional.
Okay.
Just give me a moment.
Of course.
I'm not sure what's triggered me, but I come from a Suriname family, ancestors. I have researched the trauma of my heritage. I deeply connect to the power in this room. I feel very close to many of you that I know on a personal level. And my tears are of grief, but also of joy. In the 11 years that I've lived here in the Netherlands, I have been embraced by my community, my family here. And I have a question at the end of my emotional moment. Something that happened yesterday, actually, that just, I think, is what's moved me, in that we are taking back power here. That's what I feel. I feel that we are claiming our power. Oh, I just love you all so much. Yesterday, and it's something as small as having the question between agency and power. Knowing when you can use your personal power to speak back to the colonized, racialized. No, I'm good. There were 3 very powerful women that I was sitting with at a opening exhibition. These women were powerful just for their being who they were, but in their work. And we're sitting together at this opening, just chatting. And a white man comes up and asks, can he take our picture? Because we were beautiful. And we were. And all of us for a moment just paused. But I felt the energy between us thinking, why does he want to capture our image? And I didn't say it, but one of us said, what do you want to do with our picture? And he says, well, you're beautiful women and I want to share the photo, blah, 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 blah. And I didn't say it because I would have, but one of my colleagues and friends said, no. Thank you. Making the compliment is enough, but we don't want you to take our photograph. He was offended. Now, in the Netherlands context, we understand the offense, because in his position of whiteness and power, he should be able to do whatever he wants. I was so proud of that moment that we took our own power back and told him, no, you cannot capture our picture, and no, you cannot use it for your personal use. So power is also something we each can carry with us everywhere. And my question to you is, how do you use this idea of personal power? Because not everybody works in a setting where they're in so-called leadership positions. But I want us to also claim the right to use our personal power to speak back.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well,
Thank you, Jen.
I don't need to answer that question because you just told us how. What the world?
I just love you for who you are. Thank you,
sister. I mean, do I need to answer this question? You gave us such an amazing example.
But maybe your own examples.
Because, when we have these moments, I'll give you one. Okay, I'll give you one. I'm in a big meeting. I like you, Ida. I raise a lot of money because, I've run this organization. I got to raise a lot of money to make it run. Okay. They didn't tell me that was the job. I thought I was going to be doing something else. But anyway, I've gotten used to it. I go to this guy, major donor, millions and millions and millions, actually a couple $1 billion. And he's not giving that to me, but that's his family. And I'm sitting in a room and I tell a story, he says, where are you from though? And I say, oh, I'm from Washington, D.C. And then that part of me would not stay still, from Berry Farm in Washington, D.C., because I know in the United States, in that area, he knows what that means. And Berry Farm is a very notorious project there. We rough from Berry Farm. So I ain't been in Berry Farm in years, but this is okay. This white guy's doing this, so I'm saying I'm from Berry Farm, And he turned to his daughter with me in the room and 4 other people. And he said, look at that. They don't ever make it out of there. Right there. You want to talk about trauma and triggers and opportunities and wanting to slap somebody and all the things and the pounding. See, this is the physical part of trauma, but we're not always aware of our bodies. I could feel my throat pounding. It was the heart, but it was so loud. It was pop, 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 pop. And I'm thinking, none of these damn people in this room, because of course I'm the only one in the room like me, give a damn about me. You know, they don't care, because I'm triggered. I'm triggered. And I'm breathing and I'm breathing and I'm breathing. And I joked with them. I said, you know, my only move when I'm in situations like this is I pretend to drop my pen on the floor. And then I bend down and I breathe really deep, praying that I won't come up and smack the shit out of them, you know. And I go down, I come back up, and I looked at this guy and I say, you know, but I'm here now in this room on the 36th floor with you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Darlene, I have a few other questions in the back, but I don't know who's first. Can you please
Come.
get up?
Yeah.
Yes. I promise I'm going to be shorter at some point, but not with you. Not with you.
So good evening. My name is Omaima. You touched me with your story about leadership, and I have a specific point that I struggle with daily when it comes to leadership, because on the one hand you have the savior syndrome, which you talked about, but here in the Netherlands you have now a focus to diversity. So when you have when you get the leadership role, then people will treat you differently and often start a war because they think you're favored to get in that position. But you have the good qualities which brought you there. So that's something that I find very difficult. And my second point is, maybe you can give me some advice. I'm working in the medical field. And often it's just about when I enter the room, all white people, I have just a sense that I don't belong. And there are unwritten rules that confirm that I don't belong. And people pretend to be open, and then I'm forced into a conversation. But when I have to translate my sense or my emotion, it's so difficult. So yeah.
Thank
Maybe
you so much for sharing such a personal set of situations that you find yourself in. I really appreciate you making yourself vulnerable in that way. So the first one, I think, is more about what people expect of you and what they think about you and how they treat you differently because you're in the role, right? Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe even people that look like me, you know? This is a right. This is a problem that we have to get beyond, folks. You know, there is not just one position. We have a concept, we call it co-powering. Co-powering. And what that means is that you have a position or power. If my job is to support you in that position of power, because if we support each other, we will both have more power.
Yeah. You touched me, really. And to be very concrete, I want to become a surgeon. And what I now do is even favoring black students. I take them with me because when I'm in the arena, I can support people, but it's hard.
It's very hard. I want you to find your people. Okay? You have to promise me that you will find your people, whether they're in there with you or not, whether they're an ancestor or a friend. You will find your people who can hold you up in this particular situation that you're in all the time. You find some people you can complain with, you can cry with, you can all the things for both of the situations. Yeah, for both of the situations, and for the situations with that tricky room where there are people that you feel like you don't belong. There is affirmational work that you can do that I think can help you to remember who you are. You know, what works for you may not be the same affirmation that works for me, but I want you to find people and for yourself to repeat what the people say to you. Who knows this lovely human here? It's okay, you got a job. You hear me? Okay? You remind her of how special she is, what gifts she brings, how powerful she is, how much you appreciate who she is. Remind her over and over again, and you bring them with you in that room. So when you see those people who change the rules in front of you, you'll know that, I'm okay. Yeah.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. We come in.
Yes.
Are there more questions? I can't see you through the light.
I think this is it for now.
Hello. Thank you so much for inviting me. I just had an email last week. So usually I'm more of a thinker than a talker, but I just felt like I had to. Yeah, there was a reason for me to be here because I was not. I wouldn't say triggered, but I was motivated by the way Mr. Kibbelar opened up the stage for us to talk, saying that black people have are not competent in aligning ourselves, and this is something that I hear so often, and I just feel like I had to like. It's not even a question. I just have this like comment. I have to talk about this thing that we do so much, like, and usually when this comment is made, it's at an event where people come together to align and to think and to talk, and there was a program that you joined a program. There was a week program that was organized, and I just had to come and say like, no, I disagree.
Okay,
And
yay, good for you.
I'm not here to debate, but I'm just here to say like, let's not overshadow the things we do accomplish.
Okay. I hear you. Thank you.
I hear
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
I hear
Yeah.
you. I'm tempted now. I'm tempted, but I don't want to go into
both can be true.
No, it's not about
Both can be true.
Yeah,
No, but it's true that there are ways in which we are moving in a different direction.
Yeah.
So you don't have to do this.
Yeah.
But there's also ways in which we have challenges. And until we can have the most difficult conversations with ourselves and each other, it'll be difficult to get to the next place. So I want to thank you, my friend, for bringing it up, because it's a difficult thing to do.
Yep.
To say, hey, there is something else. There's what we're doing right now. And that in itself is power. And I appreciate that. That's difficult, but that's what we have to do more. We have to confront each other and be willing to confront each other without separating and feeling like there's something wrong. It's good. It's healthy.
There's room for one more question, I hear, but I don't see.
Is there one?
I don't see very well because of the light. Is that you, Ida?
Yeah, we can't see.
Because we don't.
Yeah, I also want to say to what he said, I want to say thank you to what you just said. Everything you said, I hear you. We're doing amazing things. We're doing amazing things collectively, individually, as organizations, as collectives. One of the things that we discovered this week, we're burnt out, we're tired, we're underpaid, our bodies are hurting. And so, saying that, what I want to do, I want to inspire that we ask each other more, what do you need?
Yes.
Just like our sister came here with a glass of water, that's the what do you need.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I just wanted to add that to what you were saying.
Yes. Powerful.
Thank you, Ira.
Absolutely. And we have to take responsibility for each other. We have to tend to each other. Do you know that 9/10 of what we did this week could be reframed or restated as attending to each other, paying close attention to ourselves and each other? It really reshapes who we are and what is possible.
Maybe to this, Darlene, because we're slowly moving to the end of the conversation and we'll still have the reflection, I would like to know from you what struck you the most from the group that you have actually guided. Were there things that really came out and that you think could be shared and should be shared with this group? What is something that you've felt was worth?
Yeah, thank
Sure.
you for that. I think that people were very willing to go deep. They were willing to go deep. They did not stay satisfied with the first answer that came to them, the first prompt that I gave them. They were willing to go underneath that. And when they got there, they questioned themselves. Is this really the thing that I need to be focused on? And they would go even deeper. And I think that's instructive for all of us, for me too, to, in some ways, search a little deeper into the source or, understanding why I'm making the choices that I'm making, and to do that in connection with other people, letting people see me. I saw that in the folks this week. They let each other see each other on the first day. I was very impressed with that. I work a lot in the U.S. context, and I told them, I said, some of the people that I work with, I'm like, because they don't do what you just did. They don't go deep right away. These folks were hungry, open, willing, and ready to make change. And as a result, I know that they will.
Another question for me still on the list is, who are your, I would say, role models, but it could be leaders of inspiration and people that you see doing the work. Yeah. And it's not just to create heroes, it's also to see what they bring to the table and who do we look at and who is our inspiration.
Yeah. You're talking current people. Huh?
Current people.
Yeah,
it could be in the past. You could also say,
yeah.
But I think maybe for us, for this group, it's interesting to
sort of see.
To see.
I'm very struck nowadays by one group of people that I'm noticing more of. There's a woman in the U.S. whose name is Charlene Carruthers. She's in Chicago, I believe. But it's the black feminists. People who are leading from the voices of Bell Hooks, Audre Lorde, maybe even Angela Davis, but those people who are the current people who are people who are who are futurist, like Black Afrofuturism and that whole movement. Those are people that I'm really, really intrigued by. Why? Because they are working in the future with a profound sense of imagination. And, oh my God, who is the author whose town I live in now and my brain is dead, that does sci-fi black? My God, this is terrible.
We'll come later.
I live in California in, Octavia Butler, thank you. Jeez, my brain is, they worked me so much that I can't come with Octavia Butler. But Octavia Butler, that is the people who are following that sensibility. And there are a number of leaders, including a number of leaders of men of color in the U.S. who are really steeped in this black Afrofuturism / black feminist approach. And I find it incredibly intriguing. One, because of the imagination that they're dreaming. They allow themselves to express and experience joy. And they have really creative ideas about how we do things differently. We talked about the leaders of Black Lives Matter, the ones who started it, a number of whom I work with, one of whom I really deeply respect her leadership, Alicia Garza. I think she is the future. I think she's brilliant, and I would follow her just about anywhere. But there are a number of people that are bubbling up across the globe, frankly. Sababatso Madaboli in South Africa, brilliant. There are just some people who are living this out, and they're training themselves and learning about the folks who've come before, the Octavia Butlers, the Bell Hooks, the Audre Lorde, but they are creating a future that is about them and us and beyond.
Thank you so much. I think for inspiration, it's great to hear these names and we can go into it. I'm going to provoke you, and I might have the gentleman in the back also criticizing me, but I think sometimes we also need what the challenges are, who are not necessarily, and it could be for many reasons, not having the leadership's position. And I'm thinking of women, black women who've had who are getting prestigious positions right now, and what they encounter. What are the pitfalls? Darlene, what are we have to be aware of?
Well, I think the main pitfall is, this is going to sound judgmental. But I don't mean it this way, is naivete. And I don't mean it is like they're naive and they don't know anything. I mean underestimating the challenges that will actually be there when you move into these roles. That you sometimes think because you get the role, it's going to be a little bit different because at least you've gotten in. I.e., e.g. Harvard, the Harvard president. You've gotten in, so you think, well, it's a little different. But in fact, I think the challenges are quite profound, and that we cannot underestimate the obstacles that will still be there, even if we apparently have the mantle of power from the position or the role. Does that make sense?
I think you do. I think it resonates with all of you. I mean, if I read the room, and then for me, the question moves to the future.
Yes.
We are at, I think, crossroads maybe, or at difficult times.
Yes.
We need to maybe redefine the whole issue of diversity and equity and inclusion. We talk about social justice. We talk about a lot of challenges that face our community. How do you see us moving forward? And where would you like us to be? And I'm talking about us, the community here in the Netherlands, when you come back. And I hope you come back soon. But what do you think we should have done or taken up? Because you gave a lot of assignments. I was there. And and Darlene actually whispered to me, look at me here, giving them assignments. And I can actually maybe already, am I saying something I shouldn't say? That this is the way it might go.
Exactly.
Please share
exactly. The thing is that I talk so much about your well-being because I want you to take care of yourself, and I want you to take care of each other. I deeply believe that, we talked about power and agency. There is no power without our well-being. You can't allow your mind to outrun your body. That only ends in one way. Now, we all will leave here. We know that. We know that we're going to go. But I have a challenge to you. Can you not go prematurely because of something that you have ignored that has been knocking at your door over and over again about needing to rest or just needing help from someone else? So the work that I got them to do and that I offer to you all is to connect with each other and to hold each other accountable. I did not use the word accountability on purpose, but I was leaning over to Arthur and I said, you wait until they hear this. And then I turned back to the group and I said, okay, you get into a group, pick a couple of people, make your goal, share with each other, make a date. And then they were talking and I said, no. Where's your date? What day are you going to get together? What time? When will it happen? That's what I want you all to do with each other. Because when you work together and are not in isolation, you know the biggest issue for us when we get into these roles? We are alone. Absolutely feel isolated. And that is an illness in and of itself that we can break if we actually support each other. So my invitation to you, and you can do it because you have a smaller community. It's actually a little bit, there's some possibilities. You're right near each other.
Easier? You want to say easier for us?
Maybe. I don't know. I'm making it up now. Maybe it's not easier, but pretend like it's easier.
No.
If I don't say it's easier, maybe you won't believe it's easy. As our brother back there told us. And don't stop at feeling well. There is a purpose for you feeling well. The purpose is to bring your body, minds, hearts, and spirit together to strategize for a change that will make the difference for all of us. That's your job. Yeah?
I think, and I'm looking at you, that we are getting at the end of the conversation. But I really would like, Darlene, because I asked you before, Darlene, you're so rich in the way you, I think, also articulate all the wisdom. And it sounds easy, but I think it's deeply and it's very profound what you're giving us. But I'm challenging you to give us one key message to this audience. If you say, looking at where we are, what you have seen this week, what is your deep message? And I'll give you some time to think while I'm giving you, we wanted to show you a clip of Toni Morrison. And I know we can't because of technical reasons, but I think she so beautifully phrased our journey in the world and why we should do this, why it is so important to be on the good side, why you could easily go to the evil and more difficult side. She says, but there's no challenge, there's no intellectual challenge. We are here, we are born, and we all know we die, and I'm not doing justice to her words, but she says, it is the intellectual challenge of ourselves to see how we can contribute to good. And that may mean that sometimes part of us will not survive. But it is so important to contribute to the world as how we imagine the world to be. And I love that, and I think that's it's just also the work you are doing, the people around you, the team. You cannot do this by yourself, but you've been a big inspiration, I am sure, for the group, but I also think for us tonight. And I want to thank you deeply for the way you carried yourself. I saw how sensitive you are to energy, to the people, and how calm you stayed. And I think it's amazing to see you doing this work for so long. And I really, honestly, deeply think you're an inspiration for a lot of people in this room.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
But now to the key message.
The key message, I want you to adopt a practice that fortifies not only you, but your people. I'm not going to judge what it is, but I believe very deeply that we need to have practices. And when you get a practice, you may have many. So for the ones of you who already have some, that's cool. Identify the one that you will work on cultivating, practicing regularly to allow some of that trauma. And I'm looking at you because you reminded me of it. Thank you. Some of that trauma that is in our bodies to come out and dissipate and not be directed to another one of us. That's what Toni Morrison was talking about. Can we live and behave in a graceful way, you see? But that requires something, doesn't it, Doc? It requires some work. You're not acting poorly or in poor taste because you just want to. We do that when we haven't addressed the trauma in our bodies. So my invitation is a practice. It can be a breathing practice. It can be a quiet practice. It can be a movement of just dancing and moving your body practice, but that you identify and you commit to and you know will not only help you, but will help your people when you do it. Last thing,
Ladies,
do it with other people if you can. If you can find someone to do it with, tell them the truth about what you're trying, hear what they're trying, and try it together.
ladies and
Key
gentlemen,
message.
Darlene Nipper.
Key message.
And please join me. Can we stand up and give her a really a big hand for all the work you're doing for us, for the communities, for everybody. Thank you, Darlene. And we welcome you back very soon to the Netherlands. This is just the beginning. So thank you, Hip Hop House. Thank you, Kip Republic. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Darlene Nipper.